Hello everybody, this is Sean from Movie Assault, and it is time once again for another video. This time around I wanted to do a review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I will say I have shot this review several times. I find myself going off on tangents because I'm doing most of this off the top of my head. I did write a review for the film, and I'm kind of following the outline of that review, but I'm not reading it or, following any kind of script or anything. So I keep going off on tangents that they're sort of full of half-finished thoughts, and I don't want to make you sit through that. So I'll try to keep this as brief as I can and kind of sum up what I wrote in my review, which is on movieassault.com if you want to read the more verbose version of this. I'm not going to do any plot summary because this movie's been out for over a week. If you wanted to know the plot, you know the plot. Indiana Jones goes looking for the Dial of Archimedes, which can supposedly do something supernatural or scientifically, mathematically based. I will say that. It's less supernatural and more science-based, supposedly. I'm probably going to sound like I hate this movie. I don't. I just have a lot of criticisms of it, mainly because I don't think it needs to exist. Excuse me. There is no compelling reason to bring Indiana Jones back for a fifth film. The last one, say what you will about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I actually rewatched it and found myself not disliking it as much as I thought I did. I kind of found a new appreciation for it. The first half of it, maybe first 3/4 of it, actually are really good. It sort of just falls apart at the end, but it recovers and it has a nice ending, and that ending was a good send-off for the Indiana Jones character and for the franchise. If they were going to bother to make that movie, which again, that one didn't need to be made either, if they were going to bother and bring him back, that was a good enough ending. We didn't need any more. Okay, so now we've got a fifth film. Let's just deal with it. It's here. People go off on this whole Lucasfilm owned by Disney is ruining their childhood, and Kathleen Kennedy is Satan and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into all that. The politics of what goes on behind the scenes, if it doesn't translate onto the screen, I don't care. I'm going to review the film itself. And the film itself is a little problematic, mainly because Steven Spielberg isn't the director. We have James Mangold behind the camera this time around. And the script was written by Mangold and his frequent collaborators, Jez Butterworth and John Henry Butterworth. They've worked with him on, I think, Logan and Ford versus Ferrari and some other films. And there's also additional writing by David Koepp, who has done many, many, many screenplays in his career. And he's also brought in usually as a script doctor, or if a movie is having some trouble or, they need reshoots or whatever. I don't know if any of that happened with this, but seeing his name on a script usually means one of two things. It's going to be very formulaic, or there was a problem and he's brought in to fix it. And maybe that was the case here. But it seems to me like what they did is they just had a list of things that they wanted to include in an Indiana Jones film that would make it an Indiana Jones film, which would be car chases, annoying child sidekick, more car chases, long drawn-out action scenes, narrow escapes, strange coincidences that, pull characters out of terrible situations, all that kind of stuff. And on paper, if you were looking at that or reading this as a script, it might sound good, but the execution of it leaves a little bit to be desired. That's the way I'll put it. There are plot elements, plot holes, I should say, that are left when the movie's over that aren't resolved. There are things that happen in the film that just sort of left me scratching my head. The villain in this film is not particularly compelling or evil. Yes, he's a Nazi. Yes, he's a leftover from World War II. But the way he's portrayed, not so much by the actor who plays him, Mads Mikkelsen, who I think is fantastic in most of the things he does. He's not really given a lot to do here except sound evil and look evil, but he never is evil. which, I mean, his whole reason for trying to get this Dial of Archimedes is evil, but it never translates to anything on screen, really. So that's pretty lame. The whole relationship between Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who plays his goddaughter, Helena Shaw. Helena Shaw's character, a lot of people are making a big deal about Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the fact that she's a feminist and all that. Again, I don't care about any of that. I have a problem with her character because she starts off as not necessarily a villain, but she's not really having the best interest of archaeology in mind, which of course Indiana Jones is always, something belongs in a museum, it needs to be studied, it needs to be made available to everybody. And she is just interested in profit at the beginning. And then somehow, I guess just by Indiana Jones saying one thing or noticing one thing about her, she flips and instantly they're pals. And I didn't buy that. And I didn't buy any kind of trust that could exist between these two characters because they were so at odds at the beginning. The fact that he's, her godfather, that doesn't buy a whole lot of familial bonding rather for me. So I didn't find their relationship to be believable in the slightest. That said, the action in this film is a-okay. It begins with a very long, some might say overlong sequence that's set in 1945 in World War II, where we kind of get the setup for what's going on later in the film, which takes place in 1969. The action scene, of course, at the beginning features the de-aged Harrison Ford. A lot has been made about, the computer technology that was used to make him look young and whether it was believable looking or not. I mean, it is what it is. It sometimes it looks like an animation. Sometimes it looks like it's the young Harrison Ford. But there's always that sort of, I don't want to say off-puttingness, but it just doesn't look right most of the time. But if you can just sort of shut your mind off like you're supposed to during an Indiana Jones film, all right, fine. It's Indiana Jones, the young version, as played by Harrison Ford, with his present-day voice making him sound a lot gruffer and older than he would have been in 1945, but whatever. But the action is good. The action sequences that take place in the more modern era, 1969, they don't ask the Indiana Jones character to do these things that you would expect, that you wouldn't expect an old man to be able to do, so that's okay. Most of the really athletic and stunt-oriented stuff is handled by the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character. Again, fine, she's younger, whatever. I didn't have a problem with that. The action scenes get a little repetitive. The film is a little too long. It's 2 hours and 34 minutes, I believe, and it could have used quite a bit of trimming to kind of tighten it up a little bit. But, okay, going to see this film, I was prepared for the worst. I did not get the worst. It's perfectly fine, if totally unnecessary action film that is an Indiana Jones film. It contains most of the elements of an Indiana Jones film. Some of them fall a little flat. Some of the humor doesn't work. The writing, like I said, there's problems with it. But I walked away from the film feeling positive about it in terms that it was fun. It was a fun 2 hours and 34 minutes at the theater. I was never bored. I was never looking at my watch, but it could have been improved with some tightening, with some better writing. And again, like I said, the action scenes were just fine. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, which is what I would probably have given Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had I seen it more recently. I didn't like that film a lot when I saw it in 2008, and comparing the two seems to be everybody's favorite sport right now because nobody supposedly liked Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and a lot of people are wondering, how does this stack up against that one? I think they're about the same. I would say I probably like this one better, but just by a hair, and really I think they're probably neck and neck. In all honesty, the first three are really all this series needed. The fourth one, if you're going to make an exception, finish things off perfectly. Great ending. This one was just completely unnecessary, but it's still enjoyable if you like Indiana Jones. Just, like I said, it's just completely unnecessary. So there you go. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I'm not ecstatic that it's dying at the box office. I have no skin in the game, so I don't care one way or the other. But I did I did plunk down my hard-earned cash for it. And I walked away thinking, all right, it's another Indiana Jones film. Let's please stop it after this one. We don't need to see the further adventures of Helena Shaw. We don't need to see, Indiana Jones's other grandchildren. Let's just end it here and call it a day. So there you go. That's my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Thank you, as always, if you've made it this far into the video. I appreciate your attention span. And I also would ask you, if you haven't done so already, to please subscribe. Click the subscribe button below. Click a thumbs up if you like this. If you're going to give me all sorts of crappy comments about, why this film exists and anti-Disney stuff, just save your breath. I don't really care. I don't buy into all that crap. Again, I'm just rating the movie. So there you go. And if you did like this and you want to see more, click the notification bell and it'll let you know when my next video goes up. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take it easy.